Welcome back. So in this lecture, we are going to be talking about ChatGPT and AI in education. We're going to be looking at where is it right now, where do we think it might be in the future, some of the benefits with it, and some of the challenges. So let's go ahead and look at where we are right now. So ChatGPT's current role in education is pretty big, and you've noticed this yourself already going through all of these lectures in this course. But let's take them one by one. First of all, we have tutoring. Now, the big benefit with having a real-life tutor is that whenever you have an issue, you can have a conversation with that tutor. You can ask specific questions that you're gonna have and get specific answers. Again, this is the huge benefit with ChatGPT. Because it is a conversational manner rather than a search engine where you get the keywords right and then you go through information sources, you can be very specific about what it is that you're wondering about, ask that question and get that information. And that is one of the things that ChatGPT is truly changing within education, getting a personal tutor that is with you 24/7. Next up is homework help. Now, normally you're gonna bring a book with you from school, you have your assignments, and you have to search for the answers. That is still gonna be applicable in a lot of cases, but what is different is when you have an issue or you have a certain problem while doing your homework, rather than going through the information source, just like you have to do in Google, going through different sources of links, you can, in a conversational manner, ask ChatGPT, hey, I have this problem. How do I solve it? Why? So you not only get the answer, but you also get an understanding why you are looking for that specific answer. So as you can tell already, having a personal tutor always with you and having that tutor being able to help you with all of your homework, that is next level education. While some people are scared that AI is going to make the future generations less smart, I think that there are also the chances of making future generations more smart. Because the future generation is going to have better and better AI, which means better and better access to universal high-level knowledge and education. So me personally, I have a very bright view of the future. Next up is writing assistants. Now, there's no doubt about this being a huge game changer in the educational world. You've already noticed by creating content how easy it is to create a massive amount of content. You can do articles, you can do research, you can fact check everything. You can do everything that has to do with writing with ChatGPT. It is a text generator. So using the word writing assistants might not always be the correct word, because what is happening right now is that we are prompting, ChatGPT is doing the writing, and we are actually doing the writing assistance where we are fine-tuning and fine-adjusting the results of ChatGPT. This is going to come with some consequences that we're going to go over in just a little bit. But when it comes to education, understand that we now have AI that is creating this massive amount of writing and content. So that means that we need to have a look at education to see how we can reform it to adapt to that, rather than to hold on to conservative views where each person should still be writing by hand. There is a time and space for that as well. That is an educational tool, but that is not going to be the tool of the future. That is not going to be the main focus and shouldn't be in education. Language learning is being taken to the next level. ChatGPT can not only speak all of the different languages, but you can invent a language and it is very quickly going to recognize the patterns and understand it. In fact, when Facebook was developing its own AI, which has been abandoned since that, they noticed that their chatbots were talking to each other in very random and weird languages. They would repeat the same words, they would be repeating the same sentences, which made no sense to the humans working there. But interestingly, the chatbots understood each other by adapting and recognizing the patterns in each other's languages, and they invented their own language and could communicate that way. So needless to say, if you are looking to learn a new language, ChatGPT is going to be the best possible tool because, again, just like with a real-life tutor, you have instant access to someone with all the knowledge you need who you can have a conversation with, ask specific questions to get specific answers. And finally, research. Now, we've already spoken about the changes in search engines, but that also means that the way that we research information is changing. And that also means that it becomes more sensitive how we train the AIs. The AIs we train need to be as objective as possible to remove human biases so that all of the future, if we move into a technological singularity, meaning we get all of our information pretty much from these AIs, we need to make sure that they are as unbiased as possible so that we can flourish properly without there being a political bias, a gender bias, a racial bias, and none of those things, which could give us consequences in the future. But for today, research is changing because, again, it's based on conversations rather than based on keywords and going through specific information sources. So all of that sounds like it's far into the future, but these are things that you have already applied, and that is changing and happening right now. As we speak, schools are reforming, and those who aren't will be very, very soon because these changes are being applied. So let's take it a step further. What do we think is going to be ChatGPT's and AI's role in the future for education? Well, first of all, we are most likely going to have truly personalized learning. And when I say truly personalized learning, we have to realize that everyone learns in different ways. Some people are more audible, some people work better with images, some people work better by hearing, some better by reading, etc. And we all have different personalities. Some people work better in the mornings, in the evenings, with short breaks, without that many breaks. They have certain subjects where they excel, they have certain subjects that are more difficult. Truly personalized learning would mean that instead of being in one class where the teaching is general and supposed to be applied to everyone, you could have AI teaching you specifically exactly where you are based on your psychological profile, based on your needs. That would be truly personalized learning, and that is something that is endlessly scalable. Of course, this comes with other consequences. What would be the quota that everyone should meet and all of that? I think that conversation is beyond the scope of this current conversation. But I believe that in the future, we are going to have to look at these things like truly personalized learning in order for each person to take their entire being and all of the differences that we all have and have AI adapt the teaching to all of us. And next is VR and AR experiences. And VR is virtual reality. For example, when you put on the goggles, when you get the sound and you totally immerse yourself in a virtual world. AR is augmented reality. So for example, if you bring out your phone and you use your camera and you look around and you have fictional characters appearing at random in the room, that would be augmented reality. And I believe that this is going to play a much bigger part in education in the future because these are more immersive experiences. And we already know as human beings that the more immersed we are in an experience, the better we learn. That is also why a lot of schools go on field trips and have these different experiences because it is a way to truly experience what has happened. So for example, you can read all you want about chemistry, but once you start doing those mixtures, that's when it happens. You can read about gymnastics, but when you actually do gymnastics, that's when you start applying and learning it properly. I believe that VR and AR can be used in the same purposes for pretty much everything. Imagine, for example, having a VR experience where you would be learning about the Roman Empire, and you actually would get to experience that era. You could meet Julius Caesar, you could meet the Spartans, you could learn about Greek philosophy through actually talking with those philosophers. These virtual reality experiences coupled with AI portraying these characters who you could be asking questions in real time, that, my friend, I believe is the future of immersive, truly personal learning. And the next point to bring up, and this is going to be highly political and come with a lot of benefits, but some difficulties as well in the future, is the universal high-level education access. So by using AI and making it more available to as big of a part of the world as possible, ideally the entire world, no exception, that also means that everyone has access to this vast amount of intelligence, and that means that everyone can access an amazing amount of learning, especially when we start progressing with templates to these artificial intelligences, where they are designed to go through, let's say, a 15-year curriculum with different classes in different worlds, especially in the parts of worlds that can't afford it. That would mean that our general amount of knowledge, if you look at the entire globe at once, could be severely raised. And as we know, when we increase our intelligence and knowledge across the entire world, usually that means that we get the knowledge to improve societies and we get the knowledge to improve the quality of lives for more people. So that would be a very beautiful thing coming up in the future. And then finally, automated assessments and feedback. Now, we rely on teachers teachers today where we get assignments, and those assignments are being AI assisted, of course, but we get assignments, we do them, we send them in, and then we wait for them to get some feedback and get some assessment and know you did this good, you did this bad, here's your grade, or this is what you should be working on. But using AI, all of that could eventually be automated, meaning you could get instant feedback and instant assessments, meaning much less demand on the teachers and much more room for improvement for the students. It's going to be making everyone's lives much easier. This is already happening, but I think this will happen on a much bigger scale in the future. So while it seems pretty obvious that it comes with a lot of benefits, let's have a closer look at these benefits. First of all, we have personalized and interactive learning, and we already spoke about what those benefits are. When you're truly personalized, you can scale things for everyone, and you can learn much better because it's adapted to your own psychology and the way that you work. And humans do learn from experiences. That is just the evolution theory. That's just how we're designed. And if we can have more interactive learning with VR and AR and combining that with AI, wow, we are in for some next level learning. Not only knowledge-wise, where it's easier to learn, but also where it's a lot more fun to learn. And that is important. We get 24/7 support and feedback because AI never sleeps, which is an amazing thing for every single thing that we've spoken about, everywhere from universal high-level access to assessments and feedback. That becomes available not only everywhere, but also all the time. And we will also get the ability to get data-driven insight. There's no secret that teachers do their best, but they are always going to be biased and influenced by their emotion, by their view of the student, etc. But using AI, we can get a more objective look at the different assessments and at the feedbacks that are being given to the students. Now, understand that AI, of course, learns data that is created by humans, so there will always be some level of bias involved, but I think that there is probability that we can lower that level of bias, which will result in students getting a much more fair assessment, much more objective feedback, which results in better learning. Humans are emotional, and that's a beautiful thing, but that is at certain times an issue as well. And finally, scalability. And scalability applies to everything. It is for the actual access across the entire world. For the truly personalized learning, you can endlessly scale that. And of course, when it comes to assessments and feedback, especially if you're a deeply dedicated student, you do a lot of work, a lot of assignments, you want to have the feedback right away so that you can move on. If you're that driven, well, then you're going to need someone, or in this case, something that spends a lot more time on you and assessing you and giving you feedback. And that is what an AI can do. A teacher is not able to do that because there's going to be so many more students that needs to cater to other students' needs. Because the teacher needs to cater to every student's needs, not just one student, just because that student is more eager to progress much faster. But with AI, that is not a problem at all. So this is all nice and really beautiful, but what about the challenges? And this is important. First of all, let's talk about privacy concerns. And we've already spoken about AI ethicists in the job market, and that is going to be a big thing because everything that you say to an AI, ChatGPT here included, gets saved and gets learned and gets trained, and the company behind the AI, in this case OpenAI, that's the name of the company, they get access to this information. So when you start rolling this out on a global scale in institutions such as in education, the question is, how is that information going to be handled? Well, that is for the AI ethicists to start influencing new rules and government limits in order to make sure that privacy is still being met for every single student. So that is something that is being worked on right now, but that is definitely something that is an issue and that I think will continue to be an issue as well. Then, of course, we have reliability and accuracy. One of the issues of being over-dependent on AI is, of course, that we start believing in it too much. We are going to have a need to fact-check everything, check the sources, validate the information that comes out of AI. But when you're using it for educational purposes, you sort of expect that the information you're getting is accurate information. But knowing that ChatGPT can sometimes give you misinformation and can downright lie and make up its own stories, that becomes an issue in educational formats. How do we know when it's truthful and when it's lying when you as a student are there, where you try to just consume this information and memorize it and internalize it? How will you know that this information is true without doing a bunch of extra work? I think that is going to come down to AI just improving more and more and more. Because the truth is as well, humans will also make mistakes, and humans do also lie and have biases. So I think we are already facing this issue. I think AI right now is probably less accurate than a real teacher, but I think just maybe months or just a year from now, no teacher is going to be more reliable than futuristic AIs. It has access to so much more information. It's so good at seeing the patterns, and it's already beating the Turing test. And if it can continue in this sort of learning curve that it is in right now, there's no doubt about it, AI is going to be the best teacher. But as of right now, this is the issue that we're facing, that the accuracy can be off and it's not going to be completely reliable. With that said, we can clearly see that ChatGPT currently is a lot more reliable than Google Bard, who's facing a lot of accuracy issues. Next issue is going to be biases. Of course, all of the data that goes into the AI is going to be created by humans. And the issue with humans is that there's no such thing as objectivity. We try to be objective, but bias is inherently built into us. There will always be some level of bias, unless, of course, we're talking about very set facts like mathematics. But that is probably the only subject that we call a fact. So needless to say, biases is playing a role today and is probably going to play a role in the future. I think this can be combated, but this is going to be an ongoing battle all the time to make sure that AI is as objective as it can, and certainly tries to be more objective than a human. Access inequality. Now, this is a big deal because it's being relied so much on technology and the internet. We have to understand that this is not accessible everywhere in the world. And because it's not accessible everywhere in the world, that also means that some countries is going to get this huge advantage, and other countries start lagging behind more and more and more. So the sort of bottom line that we're looking at here, where you have technological access, you are literate with technology so that you know how to actually use it, and then you have access to AI. That should be foundational and mandatory all across the world. And I think it is super important that we meet that challenge and we bring this equality to all across the globe. If we don't, I think the gaps that we have right now, they're going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. But hopefully AI can also be used to start bridging those gaps, making it more accessible, cheaper. And of course, this is where nonprofits come in. And we're going to talk more about AI competitors that are trying to solve these issues. And finally, we have the lack of emotional interactions from humans. And this is sort of very difficult to get away from. When it comes to the job market, this is one of those things where some jobs are highly dependent on human interaction, sometimes just for the feeling. In education, that might not be the same mandatory demand, but when it comes to personalized learning, we are social beings, and some are more socially demanding than others. Completely exchanging all education with AI, I think we'll face the issue of not having that human interaction. With that said, we don't know what the future holds when we start using robotics for teachers, for example. And since we're already growing meat in a very similar way that we're growing plants, that also means that we might have flesh-covered robots, meaning they could have a vasculatory system, they might have hormones, which means that they might give us socially a very similar effect of that of a human. This might already sound like a sci-fi movie, but we are moving in this direction. The question isn't if it's gonna happen, the question is how are we going to react to it? Will we as a society accept these changes or will we reject them? The changes are coming, there's no doubt about them, but it doesn't mean that we're going to accept those specific changes like flesh-covered robots, but definitely AI is here to stay no matter what shape it comes in. Amazing, so a pretty bright look at the future, no doubt. I think this will just be a beautiful thing when it comes to giving more knowledge to more people and increasing the quality of life for as many people as possible across the globe. In the next lecture, we are going to move into the next big topic, which is communications. And AI is playing a huge role in here, not just for everyday life, but for business and making things autonomous as well. So exciting one. See you in the next lecture.